The Black Diamond Trophy will be staying in Morgantown, what that means, as well as West Virginia prepares to take the trip to Austin, Texas this week. Listen to it all on the Blue Gold Sports Podcast. What's going on, everybody? Wesley Shoemaker, Aaron Parker, back with you today with another episode of the Blue Gold Sports Podcast. Today we are talking all things Mountaineer football. West Virginia coming off a big rivalry win on the road against Virginia Tech. I would argue biggest road win in Neil Brown's tenure. Kind of saved his butt a little bit too. Won't really need to get into that much, but Mountaineers win 33-10. They break even on their schedule and now have won 2 in a row. Kind of discussing, is it a fluke or is this something to kind of try and think that they will be able to build upon? They head into Austin this week. Obviously, a tall task ahead of them facing the high-flying Longhorn offense. Aaron, just your general takeaways from Virginia Tech, thoughts, things you liked, things you didn't like so much. Just start there.
It was a well-played game by the Mountaineers. Obviously, the first half didn't show much offensive firepower. It was a little boring at times, but they got their act together. Secondary kind of shaped up. They had some dumb penalties early, but they shaped up, and I think they had a get-right game. But I'm not sure how much of that is in part to them playing well or the bad play of Virginia Tech. I saw a Virginia Tech team that didn't impress me very much. 35 yards on the ground. So a lot of credit to the WVU defense, but also, Grant Wells missed a lot of passes. They just didn't show me a lot on offense. But, the WVU defense did come out to play. And, the thing I liked the most about the game was probably that it wasn't even a 2-minute offense, the 1-minute offense before halftime that JT Daniels led down the field for a touchdown to Sam James over the middle. I thought that really sucked the life out of the crowd. And from that point on, the Hokies couldn't really recover.
Yeah, let's just start here then with the offense since you mentioned it last. My honest opinion of Daniels' performance in the first half was that until that last drive where he found Sam James on the touchdown, he was not great. I think he was missing throws. I think even short and intermediate routes he was missing. Deep balls, he overthrew guys by a step. His throws weren't as crisp and on target, and obviously they're not going to be there every game, but I think you really saw it, and it was magnified in the first half. I think there were multiple times on a third down or on a big play that could have happened that, you see the receiver has a step on the defender, or, the receiver beats the defender on the inside or the outside, and the throw just isn't quite there. And honestly, I was a little excited to see how he would react and how this team would react, and I feel like once they took that drive down the field to end the first half, he kind of got locked in, and the rest of the offense got locked in with him. And I just think he has the kind of that capability and that leadership style to how he goes is how this offense goes. And so I wasn't surprised to see everything as a team also pick up in the second half once he kind of picked things up as well.
Yeah, he put his head down in the second half and really, showed us who he really is. I think the first half was just I don't know, maybe a little sloppy on both sides, Virginia Tech and West Virginia. So I think JT's included on that. He didn't have his best half, but I don't think he's horrible. And then second half, he just kind of got right. But I don't think he didn't need to have the best game of his life, to say the least, with the running of CJ Johnson and Dustin Johnson. So I think the Mountaineer run game really kind of opened it up for, guys like Caden Prather to be open for JT Daniels, get 15 yards, 20 yards here and there.
Yeah, talking about the running back room, I think, Justin Johnson kind of had his coming out party on Thursday night. You saw the Tony Mathis fumble kind of take him out, I think. He didn't really play much else in the first half after that fumble. And then in the second half, he didn't play until I think it was that 4th down and 6 play is when his next snap was. I could be wrong, but I think that's when the next time I saw him on the field was that 4th and 6 where they got moved back from 4th and 1 on the false start, and then ended up getting the first down on I think it was the late hit on JT.
It was.
So he kind of was in the doghouse a little bit. Just reading numbers here, Tony Mathis, 9 rushes, 38 yards. CJ Donaldson, again, having another day, 23 for 106. Then Dustin Johnson, a very pleasant surprise, 11 for 83 in his first collegiate touchdown. So good for him. And I think it just adds another layer to this room. And I think it kind of just, the depth of this running back room, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to just saying this to say this, but it might be one of the top 10 running back rooms in the country. I'm pretty confident in saying that just because they have 3 guys who they can give the ball to, and I'm confident that they can all fulfill the duty properly. I think all of them have some serious speed, but the thing I was impressed with Justin Johnson was his burst. I felt like he was really quick, bouncing off tackles, kind of just as soon as he got the ball, he was quick up the field. He wasn't really moving as much east to west as he was north to south. And you want to see those north to south runners just kind of get going. And against the Virginia Tech defense, too, that was really, really good stopping the run coming into this game. And you ran the ball down their throat, and they knew it was coming, and you still did it. So Graham Harrell talked today how he was on the headset with JT during the game, and he asked JT, "Hey, you want to pass the ball?" He's like, "No, we're running the ball pretty well. Let's keep doing it." So that's good to hear. And they're going to have to run the ball this Saturday. Neil Brown said they're going to have to be able to run the ball and stop the run if they want to win this week. And that's the recipe for success, just not even for West Virginia this year, but for West Virginia in general under Neil Brown. When they've ran the ball well and when they've stopped the run and they've made teams kind of one-dimensional, they've played well. And you saw that this past Thursday, and if you're West Virginia, you're hoping they carry that over into this upcoming Saturday against the Longhorns.
Yeah, and I like what you said about Justin Johnson, about how he kind of was running north to south. I think he is a north to south runner, and I think that Virginia Tech game really showed me that. We just seen little bits and pieces of what he can do, and I like what I saw with him 1-on-1. He can really cut it up field real quick. He's got some shifty feet to him, and he does run north to south. I think not a problem with Tony Mathis, but I've seen Tony Mathis go side to side a good bit. Not that he's a bad running back. I mean, he's a good running back, but when you're putting the ball on the ground and you got CJ Donaldson and Justin Johnson in the room, I think if you're Neil Brown, you do want to sit him down for a little bit and give somebody else a chance, because Justin Johnson is young, but he's also been here and played for a year. And he's got speed. And then CJ Donaldson, man, I've never seen such a north to south runner here at WVU since I don't know, Noah Devine or something like that. He just gets downfield. He's fast, he's big, and he doesn't really mess around with the east to west type stuff. So, I like what you said. Maybe a top 10 running back group we got here, and we haven't even seen what Jalen Anderson has. But with him only being part of the lifting group last year, and this is really his first year, we probably won't see him. But it's a deep running back room, and yeah, I think that takes the load off a guy like JT Daniels and Bryce Ford-Wheaton when. Maybe against Pitt, they were kind of carrying the offense. I think if you can get that running back room to go 2-3 deep and be consistent, takes a lot of pressure off the offensive, like the wideouts. Their pressure takes it off their shoulders.
Yeah, one thing for me on Bryce Ford, while we brought his name up, he just didn't have his best day. I think it was more by design of Virginia Tech than anything else. But you saw Caden Prather have a really good day, 6 receptions, 69 yards. You also saw a guy like Mike O. I can't say he had a good day because he dropped a wide open touchdown pass, which you can't do that. Like, that was a really good play design, and JT put the throw on the money, and Mike O just couldn't come down with it. But you had 8 different receivers catch a pass for West Virginia, and that's pretty good. Especially for a team that's been pretty reliant on Bryce Ford so far this season. If you can kind of spread that wealth around, it's only good things going forward. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball for me, though, I was impressed with how this front group played. I think in the first 3 games, we've seen not a lack of pressure, but a lack of intensity at times. And I think the whole night against Virginia Tech, if they weren't rushing the passer, they were getting their hands up in passing lanes. They were causing problems in different ways other than getting a sack. They only had 1 sack on the night, but what they did, the little things, the tip balls, the deflections, all of the moving the quarterback out the pocket, the stopping the runs, the coming after the quarterback runs, the reading the motions, like that 4th down and 1 stop where they read the motion from bottom to top and then stuffed that run on Grant Wells. That was a game-changing play. That's a momentum switcher. That's a game-changing play. And so they kind of made the play whenever they needed to make the play. And then obviously the defense just gets it capped off. First interception of the year. Couldn't have come at a better time in the fourth quarter there. Jacoby Spells houses one. So just kind of your overall thoughts on the defense, defensive line, wherever you want to go with that, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, when talking about the defense, I've kind of said a couple of different times that it kind of starts up front. You got the leadership with Dante Stills, but now, as I watch this team a little bit more, it's when I say, it starts up front, I need to talk more about the other guys, and especially Jordan Jefferson. I mean, it's not just Dante Stills that's a leader up there.
Oh, Jordan Jefferson, man, he had himself a day.
He had himself a day, and he gets the work done in the trenches. I mean, when you think of a nose guard, you think of a guy that can hold down the fort, but maybe isn't really lighting up the stat sheet, because he's got usually getting double teamed by big offensive linemen. But that guy can get after the quarterback. He can really plug the gaps and really stop the run. I think he did that against Virginia Tech. Liking what I'm seeing from Sean Martin, the Bluefield native. He looks good. Taj Austin, I know he had that bad penalty against Kansas, but he looked pretty good the other night too. It just really starts up front, but as you move back, I really like the play of Coba. I think we talked a lot about him in the preseason. He just gets after the ball. He's got a long way to go, but he reminds me a little bit of David Long, just in the fact that he's kind of a ball hawk. Wherever the ball is, Coba seems to be right there. He's usually not missing out on an assignment.
That's
I think
a hard hitter too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hard.
Got a little bit of Kaiser White in him. So maybe probably not as good on the pass coverage, but it doesn't seem like Coba misses an assignment too often. But obviously the secondary has a long way to go, but they came out and they played a pretty good game. Definitely a good second half. Big pick six against Grant Wells there with Jacoby Spells. And I like that. It's a freshman. You got Charles Woods down. You got some guys not playing very well. So, keep giving Jacoby Spells and Wilson Lamp and Mumu Ben Wahab reps, and maybe good things will happen.
For me, a name that kind of went unnoticed in the whole grand scheme of things this past Thursday night was Mike Lockhart. He's not a starter, doesn't get a ton of snaps, but he had a huge pass deflection this past Thursday. I think it was either on a third or fourth down. I think it was a third down. Plays like that from guys who aren't taking a ton of snaps, but when they're in the game, that was the only play that showed up on the stat sheet for him. And so good for him kind of getting his hands on things. He got in the game against Towson a bunch, played a bunch in that second half, and it was good to kind of see him move on. As far as the secondary, though, in the first half, it was poor secondary play. On the Virginia Tech touchdown, I think it was McCormick, he looked lost. There were a couple times Ajayi and McCormick both just didn't account for receivers. Aubrey Burks, it was a welcome sight to see him back in action because they need all the help they can get. I think Spells is going to continue to play more. Wilson Lamb's probably going to continue to play more. There's only so much you can do. If you let's look at the starters for the secondary, it was McCormick and Marcus Floyd, as well as Ajayi and Aubrey Burks. So Aubrey Burks got the start in his first game back. Ajayi's got to play better. I think he's kind of struggled. There are 2 pass interference penalties that you just did not need to touch it. You did not need to touch your man. And good teams take advantage of those penalties. And if you're playing Texas, you can't let that happen this week. So a lot to get better at. I do think, though, that I am pleased with this performance. I'm not happy with it, but I'm pleased with it just because they did do their job and they did finally come away with a turnover back there. So hopefully they can build upon it, and hopefully this week doesn't go as bad as it could, because it could get bad depending on what Texas does.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be too upset when Virginia Tech only scored 10 points, but I think the level of offense between Virginia Tech compared to Texas and Oklahoma State and Baylor, I think it's very different. I think we're going to see that. So I don't think that secondary is out of the mud. And like you said, I mean, some dumb penalties. I remember one first or second quarter, man, 3rd and 13. They're kind of in no man's land. You got to force them to make a play. And somebody, I don't know if I think it was Ajayi maybe, 15-yard pass interference penalty, and the ball's not even coming to his hands. So it's like you're giving them a free 15 yards. You got to make them earn it. I didn't like that penalty. It showed not much discipline. But, again, 10 points. You can't be too upset with them. But I think they still got some work to do, and hopefully they realize that Texas can really move the ball downfield, and they got a good running back core. So once they get the running game going, that's gonna open up shots in the pass game, especially the deep pass game for Texas, and they got to be ready for it.
Yeah, Mallinger got burned for a penalty early. I know. McCormick got burned early. You just got to play better as a unit, and they did in the second half. I was impressed. They didn't really hurt themselves at all in the second half. And it's something that you just got to build on it slowly but surely. Moving on though, the Texas Longhorns, the 2-2. Oh, sorry. Before we get there, one more thing. Reese Smith, right? Um, there is no reason Reese Smith should be catching punts for this team anymore. That's 2 muffs in 3 games, and that's bad. Like, Neil Brown defended his guy like he has to. He said the wind was howling. Wind was kind of weird, how it kind of knocked balls down. You were there. I was not there, and you probably have a better sense of that than me. But you can't, like, if Virginia Tech recovers that ball, this game might be a different story. So luckily for West Virginia, went out of bounds, but I don't think Reese Smith should be returning punts for this team anymore. I just think that he's lost his opportunity to continue being the guy to go out there, because sooner or later they're going to do that, and it's going to cost you more than it's going to cost you like it did Kansas. Like, it's going to cost you touchdowns, which could cost you the game.
Yeah, being in Blacksburg, it was windy that day, and it was rainy when he muffed that punt against Kansas. But like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're out there, you're supposed to be the guy catching punts, and how many more excuses are there going to be? I mean, he's muffed what 2 out of the last 3 you said. That's just not good enough.
Muffed one against Kansas, muffed one against Virginia Tech. He didn't get that really many opportunities against Towson, just because there was so much up and down. And I think when Towson punted, that started to punt a ton, he fair caught a couple, and then they put Preston Fox in the second half.
And then Preston Fox showed me something pretty good on his punt
like
return. I know it's
return or something like that.
Yeah, I know it's 1,000, but I know, give him a rep, give Sam James some reps. I don't know. Reese Smith, I don't have a problem with him. I'm not saying he's a bad football player. Like he can go out there and be part of the receiving core. I think he's a decent slot receiver. But catching punts, no. You got to stop making excuses. And something that kind of struck me was, he muffed that punt, and it turned out to be lucky bounce for WVU. They got it back. But after that, and after how he muffed the punt against Kansas, man, you take him out there, right? No, the next punt, it didn't matter because it was a bad punt by Virginia Tech, and it was just down. Nobody touched it. But who was out there? Reese Smith. I was just like, he just muffed that one. You just kind of barely got out of a bad situation there. At what point does it stop and you say, hey, we got 2, 3, maybe 4 guys that can catch punts on this team better than Reese Smith? So, and I definitely think there are.
And let's be honest here, Reese Smith isn't Deshaun Jackson. He's not going to take the top off a special teams unit, and he's not going to drastically change the game more than likely. So
no, he's not. We haven't really seen him, turn on the jets or have breakaway speed, and that's not his fault as far as running routes, because some of the routes where he gets the ball are kind of, little sideline plays on like 3rd and 5 to get 6 yards. So I'm not blaming him for that, but
that's my point though. Like, if he's not a guy that can change a game on these punt returns, either have him fair catch everything, or put someone back there that can change the game, or put someone back there that will catch it. Because if you're not going to have a guy that's going to change the game or flip the field on punt returns, then you might as well just have a guy that can fair catch the ball every time, know to stand at the 10, heels at the 10, don't go backwards. And that's that. If you're not going to have a game changer, play it safe and get the ball back and give it to your offense, which is a pretty dang good offense thus far this year.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it really any better. I think you wrapped it up pretty good, but you can fair catch every time all you want, but he's still got to catch the ball. I'm pretty sure he signaled fair catch against Kansas and just dropped the ball. So, he can't do that right now. I'm sure he could do it in practice, but practice isn't the game, and he's shown that. Maybe it's just somebody else's turn. Now, I'm not trying to hate on him, but Preston Fox showed us a little something on his punt return against Towson, so give him a chance.
Yeah, I'm not hating.
Put him on scholarship for a reason.
I'm not hating on Reese Smith. I'm just saying that, there's got to be a better answer, or there's got to be a better game plan, because to think that Reese Smith is going to house one, I bet he doesn't have a return more than 35 yards on a punt return this year. So, and I bet I know he has not had one. I'm saying I bet he does not get a punt return greater than 35 yards if he stays the punt returner for the rest of the year. So if you don't have someone that's going to completely change the game, why put a liability back there, or why have the game plan be for him to possibly return one? Just take the fair catch, put your offense on the field. If you can return one for 10, 15 yards, great, do it. But if not, don't take the chance, just get the ball back, because there's too many times we've seen with this team, whether it be under Neil Brown or even under Dana, where there's been too many question marks on your punt return, and it's cost you possessions, and possessions can cost you games, just like we saw against Kansas. And when you start playing good teams, really good teams in this conference, like Texas, who lost by one to Alabama, like a Baylor, like Oklahoma State, you've got to be sound in all of those facets of the game if you even want to have a chance to win. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there, but it's not having Reese Smith return everything. It's either having him fair catch everything or get someone else back there that can do the job at a higher level.
Yeah, he's definitely not the answer at this point. I mean, you put Preston Fox on scholarship for a reason, so give him a chance. I don't know how bad Sam James could have been in fall camp, but maybe he should get a couple reps. And I don't know, maybe try a younger guy out. I know he hasn't got a ton of touches. Maybe this is not a great idea, but like Jarrell Williams, he had I think double-digit touchdowns when you combine his kick return and punt return in high school. I mean, he showed a lot of flash in high school, and that's why you went and got him. So somebody just needs a chance. I'm not sure who that is, but it's time to move on.
Yeah, Neil Brown defended him today. He's kind of got to, but he did say they need to get better. So maybe that's saying throwing smoke, and there will be a new guy out there Saturday. Do I think so, though? No, but we will talk about that when it gets there. Speaking of Saturday, though, the Texas Longhorns are just as desperate and of need as of a win. I said that so wrong. Just as desperate, are just as desperate as West Virginia. There we go. There's the English that I am paying thousands of dollars to learn. Texas 2-2 on the year, 0-1 in conference, 37-34 loss in overtime this past week at Texas Tech. Dijon Robinson fumble kind of put the seal on that game, but Texas had other opportunities to win. A couple big notes that stood out to me in that game. Texas Tech ran 100 plays in that game. Neil Brown kind of talked about today how obviously the more plays the better, because it keeps the Texas offense off the field, but expect West Virginia to run at least around 75, 80 plays this week if they want to have a chance to win. Texas Tech converted on 7 of 20 of their third downs and converted 6 of 8 on fourth down. Mountaineers 3-2 in Austin all time since joining the Big 12, 5-5 versus Texas since joining the Big 12. So should be a close one, should be a fun one. My general thoughts on Texas are this: they have a really good offense and a suspect defense. If they play like they played against Alabama, they can beat anyone in the conference. If they play like they played last week, they're susceptible to losing to anybody. You just don't know what you're going to get. I think they have a really talented team. It's just a matter of if that talent wants to show up that day, because they have to play inspired to win. Do I think they'll play inspired this week? Yes, because they need a win. They're playing at home and they're playing at night. So with all that being said, Aaron, your thoughts on Texas before we kind of get into specifics?
They do have a good offense, high power offense with two good running backs. I know everybody knows about Dijon Robinson, but Roshan Johnson is a good second back. He's had over 100 yards so far with a touchdown. He's shown that he can block. And Bijan Robinson is one of the most talented backs in the nation. I know he fumbled to start overtime against Texas Tech, and that might have been one of the reasons they lost. But I've heard he's carrying a football with him to all of his classes this week. So I don't think he's coughing the ball up this week. He's very talented. He doesn't want that to happen again. I don't think the WVU defense is going to make him cough it up. They can throw the ball. What I saw, I didn't watch a ton of that Texas Tech game, but I watched enough at the end to see, Texas Tech kicked a field goal late. It's like, okay, Texas Tech is going to win here. It's like under a minute. And man, Texas came out and first down on the sidelines, executed everything perfectly to where they could get, like a 40-some yard field goal, and they drained it. So when they need to, they can score. If they got a condensed amount of time, they can go out there and score in that time. I don't know much about their defense, but I know it's probably not one of the best in the conference. So WVU's gonna have to keep up with them. I don't expect it to be a 17-14 type of game.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple stats I have on the Texas defense before we get into their offense. Seventh ranked pass defense in the Big 12, also seventh ranked rush defense in the Big 12. So if you're West Virginia, you're eyeing this thing as it's going to be a shootout. You have the offense to do it, and your defense is also suspect. Texas has the offense to do it, their defense is also suspect. So hopefully, if you're West Virginia, I think the goal is to stop the run, kind of make them one dimensional. But then it kind of depends what quarterback you got. You got a kind of not a controversy because it's an injury, but Quinn Ewers got hurt in the first half of the Texas Alabama game. He has not appeared in a game since. However, he did dress this past Saturday, but he did not play for Texas. Head coach Steve Sarkisian of the Longhorns said it is still up in the air as of Monday, and that they are both practicing this week. Give you a couple numbers. Ewers in his 2 games, 25 for 36, 359 yards, 2 tutties, and an interception. Hudson Card, 4 games, 53 of 80 passing, 620 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. So they've found guys. 5 Texas receivers have scored a touchdown this year. Xavier Worthy, a Texas receiver, he was a little banged up. Sark said he should be back this week and should be ready to go. He is day-to-day right now, though. So just my overall thoughts on this offense are you have a really, really talented running back, and you have 2 quarterbacks that, by all accounts, according to Neil Brown, according to what I've seen, I mean, I watched that whole Alabama-Texas game start to finish, every play of it, and both quarterbacks played well. Both quarterbacks kind of ran the offense well. There wasn't really a major difference in the quarterbacks besides that Ewers was just a little more accurate and more consistent than Hudson Card. But obviously, I think for any backup quarterback getting thrown into the number 1 team and like getting thrown in that environment is crazy. And so it's hard to judge off that one game. But Hudson Card has scored points. Obviously, Texas scored 41 against UTSA and then 34 last week. So they're capable of scoring points with him. It's just a matter of will they be able to continue to do it? And is there, if Hudson Card does play, is there a area he struggles? Is there finally a time where he kind of falters? I really, in my honest opinion, I think if Ewers is remotely close to being ready to go, he's going to go. Because you can't afford to start 0-2 in conference play if you're Texas. And so they're going to do everything to get QB1 out there, and that is yours. So that's my kind of take on this quarterback situation in Texas. Just if you want to give your thoughts on it, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think if he's ready, close to ready to go, you would want to send Ewers out there. You don't want to risk more injury, but if he's ready, you want to throw him out there. It's a big game for them. Like you said, you don't want to dip into 0-2 in conference play this early. Hudson Card's talented. I mean, you don't come and start for Texas at quarterback without being a 4 or 5 star. And Hudson Card is talented. I don't think he didn't have a very good game in Morgantown last year, but that was a kind of odd game for Texas quarterbacks. Sarkisian couldn't really decide who he wanted out there, Card and Casey Thompson, and I think Card was banged up.
November, a lot of injuries,
yeah. 4-6, yeah.
So many variables. They knew they weren't going to make a bowl game. No, West Virginia made them not bowl eligible, I think, officially.
Right.
So a lot of variables into that game, and it's just a mess. So I don't really want to judge that. I'd rather judge him off of this year, just because 1, it's this year's team, and 2, it's 10 months later. So go ahead, keep going.
Agreed. Yeah, I was just throwing that out there because that's the one time he's played the Mountaineers. But yeah, it is a different team. I think he's got more, he's got more comfortable with the offense. I think last year he got a limited role. They couldn't really decide who their quarterback really was. But now with Ewers going down, he was their next guy, and I think he played well against Bama. Got banged up in that game, but kind of stayed in there, took his shots. So he's a tough guy. And I think he can make the throws against a West Virginia secondary. I think if he can get Worthy back, I know I've seen him. He can really turn on the jets and be a burner. I think it's going to be pretty, maybe not easy, but he'll be able to get downfield on the WVU corners. And if you can lock him up, they got other guys. You said there's 5 receivers that have caught touchdowns this year, and it's gonna be a challenging offense to stop.
Yeah, let's be honest here. I mean, both quarterbacks are talented. Ewers was a 5-star recruit out of high school. left high school early to go to Ohio State, then transferred from Ohio State to Texas. Card was a 4-star recruit. So both dudes got skill, got talent, and it's kind of like when you have such a smart offensive mind like you do in Sark, he can make things work. He's made things work at other places. He can make things work. That's what he's good at. That's why he gets paid the big bucks to do what he does, is because he's such a great offensive mind. And that's why he's at Texas, because they need to score to win games. And you need to score not only in the Big 12, but now in this kind of era of college football where teams are scoring 40, 50 points. Ever since that, I would say that kind of that Joe Burrow year even is kind of when the transition across the sport as a whole has turned from offense and defense to offense, plus some defense. So there's a lot to like from both those guys. I do think Ewers plays, though. If I had to bet money on it, I would bet on Ewers. But kind of let's go back a little bit, rewind. Dijon Robinson, 67 rushes on the year, 414 yards, 7 touchdowns. Like, that's a big number. That's a lot of production. He was a Heisman candidate last year, and everyone thought he would kind of carry this Texas team this year. He hasn't necessarily done that yet. 4 games in, hard to do that. But this Texas team starts on the interior. They have a physical O-line, which if you go back and watch the Alabama game, I would say they hung like blow for blow with Alabama. And if you look at defense too, Texas's defensive line gets after it. I will have to say though, West Virginia's offensive line has played phenomenal so far. Knock on wood, obviously, but there's been a little transition there. Jaquay Hubbard got the start at right tackle this week. Doug Nestor right guard. Same from center over to the left. Jordan White should be getting ready to go. Neil Brown said today. Adds another layer of depth there, but they're going to continue to rotate on the right side. That left side's been pretty good. You got Zach Frazier at center. And then it goes Gamitter and Milam from left guard to left tackle. So that offensive line's played really well. I think the interior of it has played really well, and they're going to have to continue playing well, not only in the run game because West Virginia is running the ball at a really good clip right now, but also in the pass protection game because JT is not the most mobile quarterback. He's not Lamar Jackson, obviously. He's not even a Skylar Howard type guy who can pull it and run and get out that way. So he's a pocket passer. He's a more traditional pro style quarterback, and he's got to make the throws, and you've got to give him the time to make the throws because we've seen he can make all the throws on the field.
Yeah, and with Texas's offense, especially at home, night game in Austin, you're gonna need to hang with them on the offensive end because I think you can bet that Texas is gonna take their shots and they're gonna run the ball and they're gonna do that pretty efficiently against the Mountaineers. Not to say that the defense is bad, but I think there's gonna be some shot plays if you put Ewers in. There's gonna be more shot plays, so. It's going to be a lot's going to be on the offense. You got to block for JT because he's going to be taking shots. The pass game is going to get established early, but I think a big thing is getting the run game going because everybody's going to be kind of locked down on Sam James and Bryce Ford Wheaton. They're going to be rushing JT Daniels. So I think if you can get some production from CJ Donaldson and Dustin Johnson early. I'm not saying you're going to be able to run all over them like you did Virginia Tech, but to establish a run game, that's how you stay in a game, in a conference game on the road in a tough environment. If you're not running the ball at all, it's going to be hard to keep up. I know you can take your shots and maybe you can win those one-on-one matchups. Maybe Caden Prather will get a couple big catches, Bryce Ford Wheaton, but you can't rely on that for the entire game. So establishing the run game early is going to be important for WVU. But I do think it's going to be pretty tough.
On that note, though, Texas Tech ran the ball 44 times and finished with 148 yards rushing, which, just thinking about running the ball 44 times and you're an opposing defense is, that freaks you out. Especially when they're running 100 plays and almost half of them are runs. That's just pounding and pounding and pounding. And I think that's then where you have, as you talked about, Justin Johnson, Tony Mathis, CJ Donaldson, where – you then, if one's taking a beating, all right, let's slide the next one in. If he's taking, all right, this rotation of these 3 backs is so intriguing and is going to be, I think the biggest storyline to watch as the season goes on is kind of how they affect ball games because obviously it's going to be hot in Austin, even though it is a night game, it's going to be hot. a lot higher than it is here in Morgantown with 50-degree weather this week. Fall is coming. Get ready. So there's a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different ways this thing can work for West Virginia when you're trying to run the ball. And this, what was a two-headed monster, I'd say, after Towson is now a three-headed monster after Virginia Tech. So it's good to see, and I think that does play an advantage where if you get, say, each guy 15 carries, that's obviously like if you're running 100 plays like Texas Tech did, if you're getting every guy 10 carries, even that's 30 carries between three guys. That's pretty good, and one's bound to probably break one if you're running the ball 30 times with three talented guys, with three guys who are all going to be fresh. And then you put in two backs in the game at the same time, like RBOs can then go kind of crazy, and a lot of different schematic things change from there. So that's just my thoughts, is that if you want to run the ball, you have the advantage to do that because you have three guys who can do that and who can do that at a high level. So hopefully they make use of that. Neil Brown said they would. They're going to continue to rotate those guys. He said that today, and they're going to ride the hot hand. So I think for Tony Mathis' sake, I hope he's out of the doghouse because they need him, and I think he will be out of the doghouse. I just think that they didn't want to put him back in there on Thursday. So that is my thoughts on the running back room. As far as the offense as a whole goes, you've got to use your tight ends in this game. I think that a part of being physical and playing a physical defensive line is getting your tight ends blocking, shipping, but also getting them out in space and getting them moving so you can kind of spread out a defense. So look for my go, especially early. Establish that early, make Texas think about it. That's where I think a difference can be had, is using your tight ends on 5-yard outs, 5 yards in, kind of also in the running game, having two tight end sets with a running back or two. So that's my thought.
Yeah, you got a talented offense there. You got two experienced big tight ends. You got, like you said, you got a three-headed monster at running back now. But I think one thing you can pull from the Virginia Tech game that maybe to work on, especially against Texas and Texas Tech, Baylor, and on down the line in the Big 12, is you want to punch the ball in a little bit more than what I saw in Blacksburg. What did we say? I think there's an alternate score where Casey Legg scored 16 points and Virginia Tech scored 10.
12-10.
Yeah, 12-10. Yeah. I mean, that's 4 field goals for Casey Legg, and he's a reliable kicker, and that's great and all, but I think there are plenty of opportunities that the Mountaineers had where
let's think, right? First time they got inside the 10, I noted that CJ Donaldson did not appear in the game on the drive inside the 10. Next time, one of the times, Mike O, wide open touchdown drop. So you just can't have that, especially when you're going to possibly have to go and make a shootout, because 7 compared to 3 is a big difference. And if you're thinking about it, that is an 8-point swing between 2 field goals and 2 touchdowns. So things like that, you just can't settle inside the 10 and then have cheap chip shots. Man, that's a tongue twister. Cheap chip shots for Casey Legg. Like, yes, he's reliable, but you need to punch the ball in for 7. I'd rather Casey Legg hit extra points than field goals all day long.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they had plenty of chances to score 6, and ended up in a Casey Legg field goal, like you mentioned. It might go off when dropped a touchdown, and no looks for CJ inside the 10. Like, what's that really about? I mean, he's a north-south runner, and he's got physicality, and he's a big guy that can get downhill. You got first and goal from the 10 man, give him the rock. And so in a game where you got to kind of play the shootout, more than likely, I guess we can't really predict the game, but in a game that's more likely going to be a shootout where you're not going to get calls, where it's a hostile environment in Austin, you're going to need to score those, and not settle for 3. I mean, what did we say? 3 or 4 times they settled for 3 when they shouldn't have. Obviously you can't make mistakes and put the ball on the ground. So ride the hot hand, and hopefully nobody's making uncharacteristic mistakes. But I think another thing to mention is undisciplined penalties. I know we've talked about it a couple of times, but I think part of settling for 3 sometimes in the past, maybe not Virginia Tech, but in the past for WVU's offense, is a procedure penalty or something like that. I think we saw it once against Virginia Tech where it was like 4th and 1, and there was a procedure penalty, and they backed it up as 4th and 6. And I thought at that point Neil would kick it or whatever, and he didn't. He ended up going for it, and they got bailed out by a roughing the passer. But in other game scenarios, if it's 4th and 1 and you're getting a procedure penalty, you're probably not going to go for it on 4th and 6 every time. So little stuff like that, not shooting yourself in the foot and getting good plays drawn up, you need to get 6 instead of 3.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Like, they were so good in the red zone to start the year, and they've just got to continue and find that and be better. And I don't think it's that hard of a thing to fix. I think it's kind of little things here and there, and that makes the difference. You want to get to predictions, or do you have anything else on Texas?
No, I'm good. Let's get on to predictions.
All right, let's start with we'll go West Virginia's game last with the score there. Kentucky Ole Miss in Oxford. Ole Miss is a 6.5-point favorite. I'm gonna take Kentucky. I think Kentucky's a really, really good team. They got to go get this win, and I think they get it.
I'm gonna go Ole Miss. I like Kentucky. I like their win against Florida, but I'm not completely sold, and I'm gonna go Ole Miss because it's in Oxford.
Oh, let's also tell the people that we are both now 11-5. I did tie it up after going undefeated last week, so woohoo! Big 12 action. Oklahoma State and Baylor. Baylor is a 2.5-point favorite at home. Give me Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State's a really good team. I think they are the team to beat this year in the Big 12, and I think they go on the road and get that win.
Yeah, give me Oklahoma State in a redemption win. They were 1 yard short of winning that Big 12 championship last year against Baylor. They were heartbroken about that, and they're still a really good team, well-coached team. Nothing against Baylor, but I'm going to go Cowboys.
NC State Clemson. Clemson is a 6.5-point favorite at home. Just kind of looking at it now, I was impressed with how Clemson's offense looked against Wake Forest last week. DJU kind of finally put the question marks to bed. I'm gonna go. I think Clemson gets it done at home. I just think it's a hard place to play. I think they get it done at home.
Me too. I don't know a ton about NC State. I know they got the Tony Gibson 3-3-5 defense, and that's been working for them. But to play at Clemson, to win at Clemson against Dabo Swinney, that's a tough ask. So I'm going to go Tigers.
And then finally, West Virginia, Texas. Texas, as of now on Tuesday night at 10:02 p.m., is a 10-point favorite. Truth be told, I think this game is going to be a shootout no matter who wins the game, but I do eventually think Texas is going to win. I just think that Ewers is going to play, and Texas's talent is going to win out. Texas has some serious talent up and down their roster, and I do think it wins out. So I'm going to take Texas, and I think they win 45-38. That is my score prediction.
I'm gonna go Texas in a shootout to a degree. I'm gonna go 40-30. WVU will find the end zone, but I think Texas is going to take advantage of some mistakes. And you're probably not going to get all the calls you want in Austin, and maybe one of those will go against the Mountaineers. But I think the Texas offense will just kind of have their way with the secondary.
Yeah. So that is all for us. If you made it this far, we do appreciate you listening. Be sure to go like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, or give us a follow if you are on another platform. Once again, I'm Wesley Shoemaker, joined by Aaron Parker. Thank you for listening, and this is the Blue Gold Sports Podcast.